We're here in the Civic Centre in Coolock at the heart of the Dublin Bay North Constituency. Two 3-seat constituencies, Dublin North Central and Dublin North East, that existed for more than 30 years were merged to create Dublin Bay North. There are 20 candidates vying for 5 seats here, and commentators have referred to Dublin Bay North as the group of death because of the competition. We posed 5 questions on topical election issues to candidates and invited all 20 candidates into our studios for interview. However, given the short run up to the election, not all candidates were available on the day, but we did receive a variety of interesting responses from the following candidates.
Micheál McDonagh is my name, and I'm one of 2 Sinn Féin candidates in Dublin Bay North in this general election, myself and Denise Mitchell.
Cian O'Callaghan, I'm the Social Democrats candidate in Dublin Bay North.
Michael O'Brien, I'm the Anti-Austerity Alliance People Before Profit candidate for Dublin Bay North.
Councillor John Lyons, People Before Profit councillor in the Beaumont Dunamede area, Dublin City.
Jimmy Gearan, I'm standing as an independent candidate in Dublin Bay North.
Déan Riordan, I'm a Minister of State responsibility for equality, new communities and culture and the National Drug Strategy, and I've been a TD for Dublin North Central since 2011.
Stephanie Regan, and I'm standing in the Dublin Bay North constituency, and I'm standing for Fine Gael.
Paul Clark, I'm running as an independent candidate for Dublin Bay North.
We invited voters from across the constituency into the studio to review the responses that we received from candidates. We presented the voters with all the responses without identifying which candidate said what. The results are quite interesting.
My name is Aileen Carr. I work as a Community Employment Supervisor here in Coolock, running a childcare training programme.
Noel Canty, retired second level teacher, representative of TV5 Monde, the French language television service here in Ireland.
My name is Leticia Agudo. I'm originally from Spain and I'm a teacher in the College of Further Education, Coláiste Dúlaig in Coolock, in film and media, and also have my own production company.
We asked our candidates what was the first thing they'd tackle if they got elected. What was their one top priority? So if you'd like to have a look at the answers you have in front of you and pick the one that most resonates with you.
I suppose my driver in terms of what I would really want to change first would be mental health.
Housing. We have to declare a national emergency.
Housing and health will probably be my top priority.
Well, I have to say it will be Beaumont Hospital.
Well, we need to keep Irish post offices open for people and businesses, abolish water charges and return public assets to local authority.
But what I would like to achieve in the first sort of month or 6 weeks is to be able to establish contacts and to meet the people that I will be working with over the coming years in the various departments, and to try and form some sort of relationship with my fellow deputies from Dublin Bay North so as we could work together on issues which are above politics.
I think, as it says here, in terms of immediacy, get rid of Irish Water first, and that will give something back to the people. Charges that are on top of charges already, because we're already paying it.
Healthcare has got to be important. In this area, of course, it's Beaumont Hospital.
Okay, and what about yourself?
More beds.
Yeah. Well, I picked housing. There are 2 questions here which are kind of similar, but I think the housing problem in Ireland is something that really has to be tackled.
Can I ask you all to hold on to the one answer that you picked and then just throw all the other envelopes into the middle?
Okay. My answer was the housing crisis, and my candidate is Michael O'Brien, AAA Allowance, People Before Profit.
I think the top priority for me is the housing crisis, without a shadow of a doubt, and I think there's a number of things we do immediately. Introduce strict rent controls, a ban on economic evictions, and then a massive programme of social house building as the only means of actually clearing the lists and dealing with the homelessness crisis.
And does that surprise you?
No, because that's the way I would vote, so I'm delighted I picked one anyway.
Cian O'Callaghan, Social Democrats.
Top priority for me, without any doubt, would be healthcare and the health system.
And does that surprise you?
That wouldn't surprise me, no. That would be their angle.
And when you invest in primary care and you have infrastructure there, it takes pressure off hospitals. It means more people can get treated quickly and efficiently in a local setting. And then people who need specialist care in a hospital can get that care and get it quickly.
I'm worried now. I thought it... Oh, Michael McDonagh, Sinn Féin, right.
And does that surprise you?
Yes.
The immediate measure that we'd bring in, first of all, that would be to abolish the water charges. and dismantle Irish Water.
It surprises me because they didn't say don't pay the water charges, so it surprises me that they're saying, no, the first thing we're going to do is get rid of the water charges. Really?
The second question that we asked our candidates was, what would you do to help small businesses and the self-employed? We asked them if there were any initiatives they championed to support people starting their own businesses. So what would you choose from the responses that you've seen?
Well, I think if we had a properly publicly owned banking system, well, then we would have easier credit for smaller businesses and startups likewise. But I actually think that by restoring what was taken away from the broad mass of people in terms of welfare cuts and so on, and restoring people's spending power, that's the best thing you can actually do for small business. And sometimes the small business lobby don't actually see that themselves.
We have a huge imbalance in terms of state aid for foreign direct investment compared to what indigenous small, medium enterprise and people starting up their own businesses receive.
They are missing having any recourse to help when there is a downturn in their business.
The corporate tax rate is currently a flat tax of 12.5%. Therefore, in order to encourage employment, small businesses should be allowed to pay a smaller corporate tax rate.
Well, I found it a very difficult one, but I think for this one, but there has to be a change. Obviously, I think a lot of in previous governments, what they've had is a lot of orientation towards large businesses, large multinationals, foreign investment coming in, and I think that needs to be changed, because most businesses that are going to thrive, and as they say, businesses in Ireland that are employing most of the people are small businesses. It might be shops, small factories, businesses 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 people, but you've got hundreds of those. The answer I chose.
For the past 8 years, through the budgets that have been introduced, they've had a massive contraction on the domestic economy because people's income has been severely reduced through pay cuts, job losses and the like, and the new taxes and charges coming in.
I agree with a lot of what you said as well. I think the problem is giving too much facility to these big multinationals and actually putting, as even though Ireland always says, oh, you know, great country for business, not for people that are trying to do small and medium businesses here, because it's happened to us as well. It's a question of the PRSI, but it's also a question of changing the entire approach. Instead of benefiting big business, benefiting small and medium enterprises from the point of view of social protection, but also from the point of view of getting incentives that you can actually employ other people. And I think I would put the strength and the focus on indigenous industry, not because otherwise I think we run the danger of being a sort of banana republic. Come in here, we're cheap, we'll give you everything, and that's not building the indigenous workforce or the skills or protection or anything. So I would have to go with the same answer as well.
I know it's coming at it from a slightly different perspective, but unless you have people out there with a bit of money to actually go to restaurants, to actually buy a white good or to purchase a holiday, then I think you're doing a huge disservice to what is like the core of, I think, the Irish economy, which is the small and medium.
For me, the emphasis should be on the fact that if you do set up a business, go to the trouble of getting the investment, putting the time, energy and everything into it, that you should not be punished if the business fails. And one of the big problems, of course, is that when a person who takes on the mantle of setting up a company, they're stuck with no social welfare as a result, because they were company directors or company managers. To be stranded then, to be left totally cut off without social welfare is something that's so important.
So which answer have you chosen?
The one I choose here was the one which involved a couple of things that required. One is the importance of PRSI, to have, or some sort of system of social welfare being available. We should find some way of also attracting multinationals more than there are to certain regions of the country, not necessarily just to Dublin.
As a country, we haven't been great in terms of entrepreneurship and encouraging that, and not having a safety net for people who do go out on their own, even though they make tax contributions, PRSI contributions, is part of the problem. So I'd like to see that reform to encourage people to do that. I mean, there's other things that need to be done as well. If you look at the huge focus that we've put on as a country on attracting multinationals, and that's been very successful, and it's gotten investment in and jobs. We haven't put the same focus at all on our small and medium enterprise, which of course are the areas which tend to be more labour intensive and create more jobs.
There's kind of a hangover there that people feel people who are self-employed are kind of slightly on the make. That's not the case. That's old hat. gone absolutely, for me, out of the high bike. The people who are self-employed are the thinkers, they're good creators, they pay VAT, they pay tax, they make jobs for other people. Let's really do something decent for them. And let's stop patronising them and thinking we have to just do something nice. Let's value them for what they are. They really deliver something very different.
Okay, so our next question is about corporate tax rates. So what we asked candidates for this one was, should Ireland increase its corporate tax rate to increase investment in public services?
We see instinctively I'd love to say yes, because, you know, when you're in politics, you want to be able to say, well, the big bad corporations, they're really mean, and so if they just paid more tax, everything will be fine. But at the same time, would I go down to Cork and talk to the 4,000 people who work in Apple there and say, listen, we just want to increase the corporate tax rate, but don't worry, your jobs are fine? Would they believe me?
I do think there's an issue around some of the corporations not paying the effective corporation tax. So because of different write-offs and different accounting, different shifting of profits around, they're paying little to no corporation tax. So that's a certain amount of multinationals. So I think getting them up to paying the actual effective tax rate of 12.5% would make a huge contribution towards infrastructure. So that would be a good idea. And also just Social Democrats are very strongly of the view that we can't be eroding our tax base, because we do have deficits in infrastructure and our public services and health and housing and education, and don't have enough affordable quality childcare, all these areas where we need investment. So we shouldn't be eroding our tax base. But to increase the corporate tax rate could cause us difficulties in terms of the inward investment. And that's something that Ireland has been very successful at, and something that we want to continue to be successful at. And there's a lot of jobs and smaller service supply industries dependent on that as well. So it's not something that I think would be worth risking in terms of increasing.
It is said that only that the Irish are paying the lowest. The multinationals entering the country, being bribed to come here, which is what the 12.5% is. It's a bribe to come here. And yet at the same time, we know that other countries are also bribing companies to base their headquarters in their respective countries. And they're actually declaring the full tax and paying the full tax, but they're finding ways and means around it. So in the heel hunt, we're all at the same game within the European Union. So effectively, if we had a higher corporate tax for the companies, of course it would be of great benefit to enable more business to be set up internally within the country, and also to give a greater scope for public services.
So which response then would you choose in light of that?
I think Ireland's a soft touch. This one here.
Okay. For one, I agree with Noel as well. Yeah, I think is the most comprehensive in this subject anyway. One of them says that sometimes they pay 8% and one says 6%, so I don't know which one that is, but this is the most comprehensive in relation to that. That is not only a low rate, a lot of people don't pay it properly. So if there was even a small increase of 1%, and that money put towards public services, that would be a huge help as well.
Yeah, I think Ireland is a soft touch. It's been labelled as a tax haven with some justification. Our headline rate is 12.5%, but the consensus out there, including from Eurostat, is that the effective rate is something in the order of 8%. Every 1 percentage point rise in the effective rate would raise €500 million for public services and so on.
When I said, I picked the one that said yes, that on the basis of any fair society, that we should all contribute directly and indirectly to the taxation system. Again, the rate, even though it is 12.5% here, effectively the companies are paying less, be it 6 or be it 8, we don't know. But I mean, large multinationals are, they're going to come to a country that's going to offer the best in terms of what they can get out of it. I think it makes it more of a level playing field then, perhaps. Like, if I don't know what the percentages are in the other European countries, but say it's 15%. So if we go up to 15%, and that's Germany, so Ireland and Germany, it's not going to make much. I don't think we're going to lose out as a result of it.
And how would you feel if that 12.5%, because that 12.5% is what applies to businesses across the board, regardless of size. Yeah. I think some of the multinationals are paying less than that, so but 12.5% is our standard rate. So to raise it across the board would also raise it for small businesses.
Which are probably the only ones that pay. Well, I know we pay it
Yeah.
when we make the money. But yeah, I think maybe there could be a difference between
could have
large
stratas,
corporations and,
yeah.
and small businesses because you're not making the same rate of money.
Yeah.
In the same, that tax also, there should be a difference
Yeah.
between people earning over a certain amount.
Okay, guys, so our next question is, the next question we ask candidates, we mentioned that there's currently a huge employment focus on the demand for high-tech skills and employment for younger people. However, we don't have a realistic job creation initiative for people who don't fit into those brackets. So we asked the candidates how they would address that issue.
For some people, making the transition to a new job is no problem. For some people, it's actually opening up a problem in their lives that they maybe didn't want to address. And that's something I think we really have to focus on. Encouraging people every step along the way. One of the challenges we actually have is in terms of literacy. If you look at the adult literacy rates in Ireland, it's about 17.9% of people are functionally illiterate, meaning they can't read, instructions on medicine bottles or fill out a form. That sometimes somebody can get a job in a certain sector, they haven't upgraded their literacy skills, their basic literacy skills, and then when that job falls through and they need to upskill themselves, the problems that maybe have been there in the background all along come to the fore, and they have to almost completely repiece together, their skill set.
Well, just going through a lot of the questions or the answers, a lot of non-specifics there. It's very difficult to pick one. So the answer I picked is the also cost of education and training. I think the access to education and training at all ages, be it from an early school leaver, and then people who maybe have worked for a number of years and for whatever reason they either want to change career or they've lost jobs and trying to retrain to get into it. And it's getting access to good quality education and training. And one of the things I feel is that through Intrio and the DSP and Solus as it is now, they need to be ensuring that the courses and training and education that they're providing are geared towards real jobs.
Yeah, I agree. I think I picked the same one.
Well, in a previous life I worked in the area of adult education, and I saw myself how people losing their jobs midlife in particular sectors like construction at the height of the crisis needed to effectively retool to begin again, and sometimes very basic skills were required, even literacy, basic computer skills in order just to make them fit for any kind of work whatsoever. One of the big obstacles really is the cost of education and training.
Now it seems like fees, college fees are going to be reintroduced, and there are already administration fees that have gone up since the time I've been teaching. So it's going to go back to something that, I mean, my parents, for example, fought for free education for all. We're going backwards now. That is only going to be available to a few. And that it needs to be, rather than institutions or colleges rushing to then the next buzzword or area, technology, this and that, just to provide what people need and what their areas need as well, I think is really important. There's another answer here that mentions Job Bridge or Jobs Bridge, which is not a bridge to any jobs at all. So I think that's important as well, because he has been quite exploitative of the people doing it, and a lot of businesses and institutions have used it to fill up actual positions. So that was a good answer as well.
We need a different process for different people. People have different skills, different backgrounds, and we need tailor-made responses in terms of supporting people into new forms of work. Part of that is, and I don't think the whole Jobs Bridge approach at all has worked. It's been very, very exploitative. We actually need highly skilled or highly paid or high quality jobs placements for people.
The one that attracts me most here is the one where the actual candidate going up for election, he or she lost their job. So they had to think in terms of sharing what a lot of people are going through, in fact, not having a job, being unemployed.
I myself was one of the many people who lost their job due to the economic downturn. However, a lot of people do actually underestimate vocational training in food, drink and tourism, because not everyone can become an expert in computer programming, languages and mathematics. For example, revising and advancing Ireland's standards in food and hospitality will increase tourism, greatly helping the Irish economy. I want to see the FOSS Training Centre in Baldoyle give priority to the unemployed living in Dublin Bay North for skill training courses.
Okay, our last question then is, what realistic measures would you propose to manage housing? So both to manage rents and rental supply and to address the difficulties that homeowners in genuine distress are experiencing.
It's so obvious we need change. I dealt with one family who were losing their house. We went to the bank, we negotiated a settlement. It was $1,200 a month. The family could only find $800. I couldn't get any local authority or anybody to give me the $400, any regulatory body, to make up the difference. The council could have bought that house. We didn't. That family are currently in a hotel and we're paying $3,400 per month. In relation to people having difficulties with their mortgages, I honestly believe that if people are means tested, have come through a difficult time and can satisfy us that they cannot pay their mortgage but can pay a percentage of it, I think the government, or I think local authorities should step in. They should make up the shortfall. It's something that could be paid back in 10 years or 20 years to the local authority, or if and ever when a house is disposed of.
When we bought our apartment 10 years ago, I didn't want to buy. I don't come from a culture that people need to buy to live in one place all their lives if they want to. But my now husband told me there's no point in renting, there's no certainty, we could be out next month, the rent could be hiked up, and that's been happening as long as I've been here. So I think rent controls are an absolute must. They need for more affordable housing, and maybe there's a couple of people that mentioned lowering the value, lowering the mortgages to the actual value of the houses now, because every property was just ranked up in terms of the price and the value, which realistically didn't have then, and obviously it doesn't have now.
Housing crisis that has arisen in Ireland, it's something that's never been seen before. Like before, homelessness was seen maybe with a certain group of people who have troubles in their lives and they ended up without homes, but now it's hitting what you might so-called regular people, it's hitting families.
Somebody gives a very succinct answer, I suppose, about the most, not thinking about myself and homeowners, but the most immediate problem, which is to build 100,000 affordable and social and affordable homes over the next number of years.
Sinn Féin have published a very comprehensive housing plan. We plan to construct or purchase 100,000 social and affordable homes over the next number of years. That the supply must be dealt with, so we have to increase the supply, we have to address affordability, and we have to control rents.
There was the long answer and the short answer. I had the short answer and the long answer, but I think, I suppose, succinctly going down into the short one will be looking for the 100,000 affordable and social houses in the next short while.
And what was the long one?
The long was holding a referendum on the right to a home and the demand for social housing. I mean, I agree with a lot of what they're saying, and that Dublin City Council needs to get back into building.
I support holding a referendum on the right to a home and reducing demand for social housing by using up Ireland's empty homes. I support the Dublin Simon Community's 10-point plan for the next government, which seeks for a renewed commitment to ending long-term homelessness. Dublin City Council needs to get back into building at least 40,000 social houses, the same way they did back in the 1930s and 1940s.
Here we have the situation, I think, of those people who are living in hotels at the moment due to the fact that there are no houses available to rent. And also we've got to think in terms of planning for the future. The one that attracted me most was this multi-layered one.
So it's a multi-layered problem. If you're in a good house and you're renting that house and you have, security of tenure over a period of 30 years, fine. We do it all over Europe. I think in Ireland we do have that again, a little bit of a hangover. It's kind of a cultural hangover.
With your sort of choosing those answers, have you voted in a way that would surprise you or that would be in line with your views?
Well, I haven't voted in a way that would surprise me, but actually I think it's nearly something that could be done by politicians, because you actually had to read it, because if you see a leaflet and it has, a party or person on it, you're nearly predisposed as to what it is that's in it.
Who would I most like to go with you? Diego Maradona.
Well, I tell you, I'm a big fan of Will Self, the author.
Well, I don't drink, so I was thinking about this one. Who would I like to go for a run with?
The friends that I have.
Anyone. I mean, absolutely anyone. It's fascinating to talk to people, strangers on their doorsteps, people you know or you thought you knew until you actually sat down with them.
You know what? I love the buzz. I love knocking on the doors. I love getting the abuse, and I love having the crack. So, we don't take it too serious.